Hey, could you grab us some coffee, old man? That was the first thing said to me after returning to the headquarters for the first time in 10 years. I had spent many years overseas, and now, I had finally returned to the headquarters. But the younger employees, who had no idea who I was, made an incorrect assumption and blurted out those words. Sure. Obeying the order, I went to buy coffee without any complaints. And then, standing in front of the vending machine, I encountered the person of destiny. What are you doing here? The question came from a stunning woman in a suit who suddenly addressed me. Turning to the younger employee who had looked down on me, she spoke firmly. Don't you know how important he is to this company? What? The young employee who had mocked me would later deeply regret his ignorance. My name is Tom. I'm a 36-year-old employee of Sanders Technology, a global corporation with branches worldwide. Ah, gray hair, it's been a rough ride, hasn't it? I murmured softly, staring at my reflection in the elevator mirror. This visit to the headquarters of Sanders Technology was my first in 10 years. 10 years ago, I was suddenly assigned to a branch overseas. Now, at long last, I had achieved my long-awaited return to the headquarters. Ah, here I am. This brings back memories. I arrived on the 15th floor of the building, the sales department floor. As I stepped in, a mix of nostalgia and newness washed over me. The office layout was almost unchanged from back then, but there were hardly any familiar faces. Most of the people were younger employees who seemed to have joined during the past decade, and their curious eyes turned to me. Hey, who's that? He's got an employee badge. Maybe he's a mid-career hire? This late in the year? Yeah, I understand. Feeling all the attention on me, I chuckled inwardly. Suddenly, a particularly striking young man stood up. Hello, nice to meet you. He walked over confidently, dressed in what appeared to be a high-end suit, his expression full of self-assurance. He stood about 6 feet tall, with neatly styled black hair and sharp features. I could tell that everyone else in the office couldn't take their eyes off him either. I heard a rumor that a mid-career hire was joining soon. Is that you? Well. Come on, don't be shy. Whatever. I'm Tyler, leader of the 3rd sales team. The man, who introduced himself as Tyler, snorted lightly and crossed his arms. Judging by his appearance, he seemed to be in his late 20s. Being a team leader at your age is considered a fast track to success in this company. Though, you definitely have an aura of competence. By the way, sorry to ask so soon, but can you grab us some coffee, old man? What? Every pair of eyes on the floor turned to me. It's part of being the new guy, you know? Right? Tyler looked around, seeking agreement from the others. The other employees exchanged awkward glances, unsure how to respond. Well, all right. I sighed internally and bowed slightly toward him. Understood. I'll be right back. That's the spirit. Tyler smirked and nodded approvingly as I made my way to the vending machine in the hallway. All right, is this enough for everyone? Buying coffee for the entire team was no small feat. With my arms full of cold cans of coffee, I stood up, ready to head back to the office. Just then. What are you doing here? What? A firm, clear voice caught my attention, and I turned to see a woman standing nearby, seemingly out of nowhere. The first thing I noticed was her refined features. Her perfectly tailored suit and striking figure gave her the air of a model. Her serious and intelligent demeanor exuded professionalism, but her expression was blank, almost cold. You must be Tom, correct? Recently assigned to headquarters? Yes. She glanced briefly at my employee ID, her expression purely businesslike. Then, without a hint of emotion, she repeated herself. So, what exactly are you doing here? Well, you see. Just as I was about to explain the situation, a sharp voice echoed through the hallway. Hey, newbie. How long does it take to grab some coffee? Don't tell me you're useless. It was Tyler, clearly irritated by my delay. He marched toward me with large strides, but suddenly stopped dead in his tracks. Ms. Sanders. Good evening. The woman, now identified as Ms. Sanders, greeted him in a calm, detached tone. Tyler's eyes widened in surprise, and his cheeks flushed faintly. Could it be that he? Ms. Sanders, perfect timing. I was just teaching our new hire here about the hierarchy. You know, it's all about making a strong first impression. Wearing what could only be described as a smug expression, Tyler slapped my shoulder firmly and said, "See?" For the first time, a slight change crossed Miss Sanders' expression. New hire. Yes. He may look like a washed-up old man, but with the right guidance, I'm sure he'll improve. He should be grateful to be placed under me. Someone who studied management at one of Japan's top 3 private universities. Slapping my shoulder repeatedly, Tyler's tone became increasingly smug. As if he were showing off just how capable he was. It seemed he had a soft spot for Ms. Sanders. Hey, old man, go ahead and say hello. She's the CEO's personal secretary. Wow, so that's how it is. I found myself nudged forward, and I was about to bow my head and say nice to meet you to Ms. Sanders. But then, Ms. Sanders. No, that won't be necessary. She glanced at me briefly before continuing in a composed tone. If it were to get out that I had allowed the department head to bow to me, I would surely face reprimands from our CEO. Ha! The dumbfounded voice came from Tyler, who was frozen in place. Ms. Sanders turned her icy gaze toward him and asked, "Did you not look at his employee badge?" His employee badge? It clearly states Sales Department Head. What? With a look that said, this must be some kind of joke, Tyler stepped in front of me. Then, he stared intently at the employee ID hanging from my chest, as if trying to burn a hole through it. No way, is this for real? In an instant, the color drained from his face. Yes, it's real. I'm not a mid-career hire. My name is Tom, and I've been appointed as the new head of the sales department, replacing the previous head who recently left. I explained how I'd come to introduce myself to the team but was mistakenly taken for a mid-career hire. Tyler, pale and trembling, stammered. I'm so sorry. No, it's partly my fault for not clarifying sooner. Don't worry about it. We're colleagues now, so let's work together. Here. Take this coffee as a gesture of goodwill. No way. I can't accept this. It would be too disrespectful. Well, it would actually be a problem if you didn't take it. My arms, strained from holding the cold and heavy cans, were reaching their limit. I gently but firmly pushed the coffee into Tyler's hands. He stumbled, almost collapsing under the weight. As if the coffee itself carried the gravity of the moment. Ms. Sanders' icy gaze then landed on Tyler, and she delivered a final blow. Tom, our new department head, is one of the most promising candidates to become the next CEO, personally endorsed by our CEO. What? This incident will be reported to the president. Also, I do not know you personally, Tyler, so refrain from addressing me so casually from now on. Her tone was so calm and emotionless that even I felt a chill run down my spine. Tyler, utterly stunned, collapsed to the floor, muttering, "No way." A large number of canned coffees rolled across the floor with a loud, clattering noise. As if she didn't hear it at all, Miss Sanders walked briskly away from the scene. Looking forward to working with you, Tyler. Hastily gathering up the canned coffees, I ran after Miss Sanders. Miss Sanders, wait. No matter how many times I called out, she didn't slow her pace. I quickened my steps and finally caught up with her near the elevator hall. Miss Sanders, right? Thank you for earlier. Is that so? She finally stopped and turned around slowly. Wait. At that moment, something clicked in my mind. Looking at her refined features, I realized I had seen her face before. Could it be that she? Kristen? I said the name with a nostalgic warmth. But Ms. Sanders' expression remained unchanged. In fact, her demeanor seemed to grow even colder. Kristen, isn't it? From back when we met at the hospital. You've got the wrong person. She stated it firmly and without the slightest hint of hesitation. This is the first time I've met you, Tom. Though I was informed about you in the documents beforehand. I see. Sorry for saying something strange. Excuse me. She gave a brief, expressionless bow, then pressed the elevator button. As the doors opened, she stepped inside without looking back. The doors closed, and with them, she disappeared from my sight. Wrong person, huh? I thought I'd finally met her again. Watching the door close in front of me, my mind was pulled back to memories from more than 20 years ago. It was during the summer vacation of my 6th grade year. With both my parents working, I had been left in the care of my grandmother. My grandmother had a chronic illness and needed to take the bus twice a week to the town's general hospital. This is so boring. I'm in 6th grade. I can stay home alone. But my grandmother, perhaps worried about leaving me alone, always took me along to the hospital. Still, waiting for her during her appointments left me with nothing to do. Bored and restless, I eventually reached my limit. That's when I decided to explore the hospital. Maybe there's something interesting around here. I wandered aimlessly, looking for something to capture my attention. Before I knew it, I had wandered into the wing with patient rooms. Wait, how do I get back from here? The quiet, sterile air, the sharp smell of disinfectant, and the tense faces of the staff walking by overwhelmed me. A sudden wave of unease hit me. My grandmother's appointment would be finishing soon, and I wanted to return. But I didn't know how to find my way back. What should I do? I almost burst into tears and crouched down at the edge of the hallway. It was at that moment. What's wrong with you? Huh? I heard a voice above my head. When I looked up, standing there was a little girl. Her hair was tied into 2 neat ponytails at the nape of her neck, and she was wearing a white dress. Does something hurt? No, not really. Kristen will cast a spell for you. Pain, go away. The girl, who called herself Kristen, gently placed her hand on my head. And then, she chanted the magic words, pain, go away. Over and over again, gently, as if stroking my head with care. It's okay now. See? It doesn't hurt anymore. Really? Her face lit up with a bright smile, like a flower blooming. That smile remains vivid in my memory, even now. She was so cute, so angelic, to my young eyes back then. Oh, Kristen. Did you make a new friend? Yep. Wait, what? Before I realized it, I had somehow become her friend. Thanks to a passing nurse who found us, I was able to safely return to the waiting room where my grandmother was. After that day, I never complained about accompanying my grandmother to her hospital visits again. Tom. The meeting spot was the courtyard at the center of the hospital. That's where Kristen and I started playing together. Whenever I showed up, she would always greet me with a beaming smile and wave enthusiastically. To be honest, I had always wanted a younger sister, so playing hide-and-seek or tag with her never felt like a chore. I don't want to go home. One day, without thinking, I muttered to myself. Summer vacation was almost over. Soon, I would return to live with my parents. But at night, the house was always eerily quiet until late because they worked so much. I couldn't bring myself to say it to them, but the truth was, I didn't want to go back. Tom, you don't want to go home? Huh? I looked up her, tilting her head in confusion. Then you should say so. If you don't tell them you don't want to, how will they know? Oh. Her words hit me like a bolt of lightning. It was the first time someone, especially someone much younger than me, had said something that seemed to see right through me, how I held back my true feelings out of consideration for my busy parents. You're right. Kristen, you're absolutely right. When I want a hug from mommy or daddy, I say, hug me. Yeah. That night, for the first time, I called my parents and shared how I felt. Could you try to come home earlier at night? I don't like being alone in the house. They were surprised but apologized for not noticing. They even promised to adjust their work schedules to reduce overtime. That experience changed me. Instead of waiting for someone to notice, I realized the importance of expressing my feelings directly. I learned that sometimes, sharing my thoughts without holding back can be beneficial for both sides. It was all thanks to Kristen. Thank you. I decided that the next time I saw her, I would tell her that. But I never saw her again. Kristen won't be coming back anymore. The nurse who knew her told me with a slightly sad smile. And just like that, summer vacation ended. I returned to my parents' home. Even now, more than 20 years later, I can remember it all as if it were yesterday. That little girl waving at me with a radiant smile. Looking back, maybe she was my first love. I hope she's doing well, wherever she is. She must have grown into an incredibly beautiful woman by now. Throughout my life, I've often thought about her. Miss Sanders looked so similar to Kristen that took my breath away. Even with her cold expression, so unlike Kristen's. No way. It's impossible. Such coincidences don't happen. It must just be a coincidence, a case of someone looking similar. Convincing myself of that, I got through my first day as a department head. But that very day, I found myself meeting Miss Sanders again. Tom. It's so good to have you back. In the evening, I was summoned to the CEO's office. When I arrived, the head of Sanders Technology himself, Mr. Sanders, greeted me with a hearty handshake and a firm pat on the shoulder. It's been a while, Mr. Sanders. 10 years. I left you overseas far too long. I'm sorry about that. But you've done outstanding work. Thank you so much. The words of him warmed my heart, filling me with a deep sense of joy. Even before my transfer, he had taken notice of me, placing high expectations on my abilities. My recent appointment as department head was a bold move, made despite opposition from other executives. As expected from the person I trust most to carry the future of this company. I have high hopes for you. Of course. Hearing his words, I felt a renewed determination to give my all moving forward. At that moment, he continued. By the way, to better support you, I've decided to assign you a secretary. A secretary? Yes. She's quite capable. With that, Mr. Sanders used his desk phone to call someone. Shortly after, there was a knock at the door, and it opened. May I help you something, Mr. Sanders? Come in. Tom, let me introduce you. This is Sophia, who is currently serving as my secretary. The woman who entered, impeccably dressed in a suit, was none other than the same Ms. Sanders from earlier. Nice to meet you again. My name is Sophia. I look forward to working with you. She bowed politely, though her expression remained as cold as it had been that morning. She's reliable, but as you can see, she's not exactly the most cheerful person. I hope you'll excuse that, Tom. Mr. Sanders chuckled as he lightly patted Sophia's shoulder. The distance between Mr. Sanders and his secretary seemed unusually close. The reason became clear with his next words. As you might have guessed from her last name, Sophia is actually my daughter. What? Don't we look alike? People often say we don't. I see. She's your daughter. Bowing my head, I processed this unexpected revelation with mixed emotions. It's a pleasure to work with you, Sophia. Saying her name out loud, I felt a strange blend of acceptance and melancholy. I recalled Kristen once mentioning, "My dad is a professor." Mr. Sanders had been running Sanders Technology for over 30 years. The name, the family, the upbringing, everything about Sophia and Kristen seemed different. So, she's not the one. Perhaps it was time to finally move on from my first love. Someday, I want to meet Kristen again and thank her. But the dream I've held onto in the corner of my heart for so long now feels impossible to achieve. With a small ache in my chest, I faced Sophia anew. "I look forward to working with you, Sophia." And so, she became my secretary, working with me in the sales department. After about a week, I grew accustomed to my responsibilities as department head and found myself observing her more closely. "Tom, here's this month's sales performance report." In her usual composed tone, Sophia handed me the report. A single glance at it made my eyes widen in surprise. "This is..." The report wasn't just a list of numbers, it was filled with meticulous analysis and insightful observations. It detailed the reasons behind a 10% increase in sales compared to the previous month, broken down by industry, client size, and individual sales performance. What astonished me further was the inclusion of concrete improvement suggestions for each area. "Did you conduct this analysis yourself, Sophia?" "Yes." The figures account for the impact of our company's ongoing digital transformation initiatives and recent currency fluctuations. "It's incredible." I was genuinely impressed. Her work wasn't just efficient and precise. She consistently anticipated what I needed before I even asked for it. "Thank you. I truly appreciate this. Thanks to you, the direction of our department has become much clearer. You're always covering for my shortcomings as a manager." "Really, thank you. I'm honored." Sophia gave a slight bow, her expression as neutral as ever. But when she raised her head, I noticed something, just a faint but undeniable glimmer of confidence in her eyes. "Maybe she's not as cold as she seems. I'd like to know more about her. Is there anything else you need, Tom?" "Oh, no, not that. I mean, I want to know more about you, Sophia." "About me?" "Not in a weird way. I just think, since we're working together now, we're teammates. And the more you know about your teammates, the better you can work together, don't you think?" "Teammates," she muttered softly, and Sophia slightly furrowed her brows. It was a thoughtful expression, a change I had never seen on her face before. Just as I thought, "Oh, there it is," her expression reverted to its usual calm. "I'm sorry, but I don't quite understand." "Oh, really? I didn't expect that. I guess even you have things you don't know, Sophia. I'll make sure to study it for next time." No, you don't have to take it so seriously." Despite her extraordinary competence, she could be overly serious at times, rigid and inflexible. And yet, that quality made her feel all the more human. Still, I really want to know more about her. In my heart, I secretly thought so. And then, one day, on my way to lunch, I stopped just before turning a corner in the hallway. I overheard voices from some junior employees in the sales department. "Do you think Sophia got in through connections?" "What? Of course. She's the CEO's daughter, it's a given. I've heard she's pretty competent, but is that even true?" "No way. Either she's just pretending, or someone's helping her behind the scenes." I found myself frowning as I unintentionally eavesdropped. "Did you see her attitude today?" "I'm solely assigned to the department head, so I can't assist you," she said. "All I did was ask her a simple question." "She probably couldn't answer it anyway. I mean, rumor has it that she..." "Was that really true?" "She was the one who, but..." At that point, I took a deep breath, turned the corner, and stood in front of the three employees. "Hey, can I have a word with you guys?" "Tom." "Oh, good afternoon." They froze in surprise, their faces a mix of guilt and shock. I smiled gently but spoke firmly. You were talking about Sophia, weren't you? Let me tell you this, no one sees her work up close more than I do. Yes, she's the CEO's daughter. But her abilities are the real deal. Oh, I see. And talking behind someone's back isn't right, either. If you have an issue, you should tell her directly. Directly to that Sophia? Exactly. And if that's too difficult, you can always come to me. I'm the department head, and I'll listen anytime. We're a team. And that includes Sophia. Let's work together to build an even better team. I'm still far from being a perfect department head, so I'd appreciate everyone's cooperation. After I added that at the end, the three of them bowed their heads one after another. Yes, Tom. I'm sorry. We promise we won't do anything like this again. I smiled and lightly patted each of their shoulders in turn. Thank you for understanding. Let's do our best this afternoon, together. It seemed my message had gotten through, and I felt a sense of relief as I left the scene. But as I walked down the hallway, I noticed a figure standing ahead. Sophia. Hello. She quickly averted her gaze. Without even glancing at the startled employees, Sophia brushed past me and returned to the office with a blank expression. Did she hear that conversation too? I wondered what she might have thought under her composed exterior. I hoped she wasn't hurt by it. With that wish in mind, I continued to the cafeteria. After lunch, when I returned to the office, Sophia was standing in front of my desk. Sophia, is something wrong? Tom, may I have a moment of your time? Sure, of course. It was the first time she had ever initiated a conversation like this. As I nodded in surprise, she hesitated, a rare occurrence for someone who usually spoke so fluently. After a brief pause, she finally spoke. Thank you for earlier. Huh? Oh, so you heard it after all. Yes. You stood up for me. It wasn't a big deal. I just did what anyone would. It made me happy. What? She clearly put her feelings into words. It was the first time she had done so since becoming my secretary, and, surprised, I couldn't help but feel my cheeks soften into a smile. It's only natural. You're an important member of the sales team, Sophia. Important, am I? Of course. That's why. I didn't mind being ignored. With that thought, I extended my hand toward her. Let's keep working together. I'm counting on you. Her eyes wavered slightly as she stared at my outstretched hand. And then. Yes. Likewise, Tom. Sophia. She reached out and shook my hand. A cool, firm grip. From that day forward, something shifted in her. For example, it's like. Well, just a metaphor, or a joke, really. Yes. I think I understand. Though her expression remained stoic, she began nodding slightly at my jokes. Tom, it seems there's a problem in the second sales team. She started proactively observing the department, quietly supporting not just me but also the other employees. And she continued to perform her duties as a department secretary flawlessly. Her efforts gradually changed the way others viewed her. Then, one day, the major project our sales department had been working on culminated in a successful contract. We did it. Mr. Sanders will be thrilled. The office was abuzz with excitement after the successful conclusion of the major project. Overwhelmed with joy, I found myself standing up and unconsciously grabbing both of Sophia's hands. Oh, sorry. I got carried away. Even though we'd grown a little closer recently, that was clearly too much. Seeing her freeze with no reaction, I hastily let go of her hands. And then. Yes. It's wonderful news. Her lips curving ever so slightly. It was a small, but unmistakable smile, her first smile since we'd met. Ah. I let out a soft exclamation, surprised. That smile reminded me vividly of another one from long ago. Is something wrong, Tom? No, it's just. Sophia, your smile is so beautiful. It caught me off guard. What? Had she not realized she was smiling? Her eyes widened slightly, and then a faint blush spread across her cheeks. She really does resemble her. A mix of nostalgia and a new emotion welled up inside me. The feelings I had carried for Kristen all this time and the emotions I now felt for Sophia, who stood right in front of me. Confused by the changes within myself, I couldn't stop noticing the sound of my heartbeat since a moment ago. Could it be that Later, a celebratory dinner party was organized to commemorate the success of the project. I arrived a little late due to work and stepped into the banquet room at the tapas bar. The party was already in full swing, and some of the employees were sporting slightly flushed faces. Tom, this way. Sophia, who had gone ahead, guided me to a seat next to her. Thanks. Is everyone here now? Yes. Shall we make another toast? No need. Let's not disrupt the mood, they're enjoying themselves. I looked around at the employees, who were enjoying a well-deserved break from their hard work. With a feeling of thank you for all you've done so far. Then, my eyes were suddenly drawn to someone sitting in the corner of the banquet hall. Hey! We're out of beer here. Someone, hick, order more. Raising an empty beer mug was none other than Tyler. Since my appointment as department head, he had noticeably faded into the background. Whether it was the shock of my promotion or the blunt rejection he'd received from Sophia, he had lost his spark. His performance had slipped, and he was no longer among the department's top achievers. Interestingly, his former subordinates, who once worked under his domineering management, were now thriving and producing stellar results. Damn it! No one listens to me anymore. This isn't how it's supposed to be. He already seemed pretty drunk. With his face bright red and his eyes unfocused, he sat alone, quietly downing beer after beer. The other employees were keeping their distance, deliberately avoiding him. Even so, he's one of my team members. As his manager, I should talk to him, even if he resents it. Just as I started to get up, Tyler was the first to rise to his feet. Then, with unsteady steps, he began walking straight toward the table where Sophia and I were sitting. Hey there, Sophia. As if he couldn't see me at all, Tyler spoke only to Sophia. He plopped down heavily next to her and clinked his glass against hers without asking. This is your first time coming to a drinking party, huh? Let's have a drink together. No, She wore an almost imperceptible look of confusion that only I could catch. Sophia placed her glass down and declined Tyler's invitation. Huh? That's just water, isn't it? You're not drinking? Well, I'm not good with alcohol. What? Seriously? Come on, that's no fun. Before anyone could stop him, Tyler quickly poured beer into Sophia's glass. It was almost too fast for someone supposedly drunk. He shoved the glass toward her. Here, just one. You know how Tom always says, we're a team, right? And teammates bond over drinks. No, stop it. I was so happy to become teammates with you, Sophia. I'm not giving up on you. With a creepy smirk, he pushed the glass even closer to Sophia's face. In that instant, Tyler, stop. I stood up and grabbed his wrist. Did you not hear her say no? You've had too much to drink. It's time for you to go home. The other employees nodded in agreement with my words. Tyler's smile faded from his face. Oh, I see. His voice dropped to a low growl. You guys don't know, do you? Who Sophia really is. Sophia's expression froze. The employees began murmuring, what's he talking about? Tyler's eyes narrowed sharply, and he pointed straight at Sophia. "If you won't say it, I will. That you just have a high school diploma." The color drained from Sophia's face. The room went silent as if someone had poured ice water over it. "Shocking, isn't it?" Tyler scanned the room as he continued. "She's only here because she's the CEO's daughter. She acts all high and mighty, but she never even went to college. While the rest of us studied day and night, cramming for tough entrance exams to get into this company, she just waltzed in. Must be nice to start on a whole different level, huh?" "Tyler." I cut him off sharply, raising my voice. "Enough. Stop this, now." But it was too late. Sophia's pale shoulders trembled, and tears quickly welled up in her eyes. "Sorry. Here's enough to cover both of us." I pulled all the bills from my wallet and shoved them into the hand of a nearby employee. "Let's go, Sophia." "What?" I grabbed her hand as tears threatened to spill and led her out of the party. We left the tapas bar, walking in silence for a while. I glanced sideways at her trembling shoulders, unsure of what to say. What kind of words could ease this pain? Finally, as we reached a quiet, deserted street, Sophia suddenly came to a stop. "Tom." Her trembling voice broke the silence. "Why do you defend me?" "What?" I turned to face her in surprise. Under the moonlight, tears glistened as they streamed down her cheeks. "It's because I'm the CEO's daughter, isn't it?" Her voice was stiff, reminiscent of when we had first met. She continued in a detached tone. "Because you feel obligated to treat me differently, as someone my father forced into this company?" "No." I said it firmly, without hesitation. "It's because it's wrong. Wrong to assume someone hasn't worked hard based on baseless rumors. I've seen you, every day during your lunch breaks, studying management and sales in the office. I know how much effort you put in." "What?" Sophia's eyes widened in surprise. But soon after, she averted her gaze, lowering her eyes as if to avoid looking at me. "But it's true that I only graduated high school. My father didn't allow me to go to college. Mr. Sanders didn't. He said I should learn by doing. That being at his side would teach me more than any university could. That was something I hadn't known." It sounded exactly like something Mr. Sanders, who valued results over credentials, would say. "Look at me, Sophia. Tom. Your abilities are undeniably real. The things you've learned by staying at your father's side. The effort you've made to grow, they don't vanish just because people find out you didn't go to college. And even now, you keep striving to improve. I see that, and that's why I respect you. That's why I can't help but want to defend you." "What?" Suddenly, she lifted her head sharply. Tears, large and glistening, streamed down her face one after another. "But it's enough," she said softly after hesitating for a moment. "If you keep standing up for me, your position could be at risk. You were already promoted at my father's insistence. And some in upper management still opposed the decision." "Sophia." Her words made my chest tighten painfully. Even while dealing with her own struggles, she was thinking about others. She isn't just cold after all. She truly has a kind heart as well. "So that's it, because I realized you're that kind of woman. I like you." "What?" "I can't stand the thought of you being hurt or risking your position because of me. It's unbearable, because I like you, Tom." She looked straight into my eyes. The confession Sophia spoke left me breathless. "I've liked you for a long time. And maybe, just maybe, I thought you might feel the same. That's why you defended me. But I'm sorry for assuming so." Her voice grew smaller and smaller as she looked down again. Without thinking, I grabbed her shoulders. "That might be true. Huh? Maybe I don't want you to get hurt. Maybe I'd risk my position to protect you, because it's true. Because I like you, too. The moment I said those words, Sophia's eyes widened in disbelief. No way. It's true. I like you, Sophia. Ever since I started spending time with her, my thoughts of Kristen had faded day by day, replaced entirely by thoughts of Sophia. Without realizing it, I had moved on from my long-forgotten first love. Really? Her face crumpled with emotion. Seeing her eyes brimming with tears, on the verge of spilling, I gently reached out my hand. It's true. That's why I want to see your smile, Sophia. Tom. She flung herself into my chest with force. I hesitated for a moment, then, gathering my courage, wrapped my arms around her trembling back. Tom. With her face buried in my chest, she sobbed openly. She must have endured so much, silently bearing the weight of others' judgments. Frustrated at my inability to protect her sooner, I bit my lip. But I promise you this, from now on. No matter what happens, I'll protect you. Hoping she could feel my resolve, I tightened my embrace around her. 1 month later. Good morning, Sophia. Good morning, Tom. She returned my greeting with a shy but warm smile. Seeing her like that, I couldn't help but feel a swell of affection. We were now secretly dating. By the way, about what you mentioned yesterday, Tom. Here are the results of the investigation. You already looked into it? That's amazing. It's part of my job. Also, here's the document you requested. Her unchanging competence and professionalism, combined with her ability to separate work and personal matters, never ceased to impress me. With every new side of her I discovered, my feelings for her grew even stronger. Thanks to her support, I was managing my duties as sales manager smoothly. But just when everything seemed to be going so well, a storm cloud suddenly loomed over us. Something seems off. One day, I noticed a strange atmosphere in the office. As Sophia and I discussed work, I could feel the employees stealing glances at us and whispering in hushed tones. Is there some kind of trouble? I approached one of the male employees, puzzled, and asked. Startled, he looked at me, then averted his eyes awkwardly. I recognized him. He was one of the employees who had gossiped about Sophia in the hallway before. I've told you before, if there's an issue, come to me. I'll listen to anything. Well, he exchanged uneasy looks with the others before hesitating, then finally mustered the courage to speak. Actually, there's a rumor going around the sales department. A rumor? Yes, that you, Tom, might have been promoted to manager not because of your abilities but because you cozied up to Mr. Sanders. What? Since being promoted at an unusually young age, I'd mentally prepared myself for skepticism. But hearing it directly from my team shook me. It felt as if the foundation I had painstakingly built was crumbling beneath me. And there's more. People are saying you've been bragging wherever you go, claiming that the department's recent success is entirely your doing. Everyone's heard the rumors. What? Where did such lies even come from? Honestly, I'm not sure where it started. No one seemed to know the source of the rumors. Still, one face came to mind. Suspecting a subordinate might make me a failure as a manager, but could it really be you? After that, the rumors didn't die down. Instead, they spread even further. Of course, they eventually reached Sophia's ears as well. I'm so sorry. Because of me, you're now caught up in this mess too. That's not true. You've done nothing wrong, Sophia. It's my failure. I couldn't unify the team. Her expression, which had only recently begun to brighten, darkened again because of my shortcomings. But how could I quell these rumors? How could I make everyone recognize her true capabilities? I was lost in thought when it happened. A major incident put her in the biggest crisis of her career. It's finally here, Sophia. The big day. Yes, it is. On this day, Sophia appeared more nervous than usual. If this deal goes through, our company will greatly expand its market share overseas. It's an opportunity we can't afford to lose. Even I'm feeling the pressure. This negotiation, combined with a critical meeting, was one of the most important events in Sanders Technologies' history. The significance of the occasion meant that not only department heads but also executives, including Mr. Sanders himself, were attending. As the representative of the sales department, I was tasked with delivering the presentation to the international client. But we've prepared thoroughly up to today, so everything will be fine. And thanks to all your analysis and materials, I feel confident. Yes. I'll provide all the support I can during the meeting. For you, Tom. With a small smile, she gently placed her hand on my back. Could there be any encouragement more reassuring than this? Confidence surged through my chest, and I became certain that I could make the business deal a success. At precisely 1 p.m., the meeting began. In the large conference room, the tension in the air was palpable as I started my presentation. Pointing to the materials displayed on the screen, I spoke with both confidence and a touch of nervousness. Our new product addresses existing issues while incorporating groundbreaking features. The international clients seated at the center nodded and occasionally widened their eyes in surprise, signaling their growing interest. Their reactions reassured me that the presentation was resonating. By the way, the presentation I'm giving is in English. Thanks to my experience working at the US branch, I seem to be conveying the content effectively, which is a relief. Interesting. As I neared the end of my presentation, I heard Keith, the executive vice president, murmur softly. Keith had been one of the staunchest opponents of Mr. Sanders' decision to promote me to sales manager. Mr. Sanders had personally entrusted this project to me. Prove your ability and silence the remaining opposition, he had said. Thank you, Mr. Sanders, I thought, glancing at him. When I sent a glance his way, Mr. Sanders met my eyes and gave me a firm nod. A gentle smile was on his face. Buoyed by his encouragement, I continued my presentation with even greater conviction. Please look at this graph. I gave a signal to Sophia, who was controlling the slides, and the screen transitioned to the next slide. This projection illustrates the potential market growth. With the adoption of our product, we guarantee a 150% increase in revenue compared to the previous fiscal year. At that moment, the client abruptly stood from their chair. Then, to my astonishment, they broke into loud applause. Ha! I exchanged a surprised, delighted glance with Sophia, and we both broke into smiles. Not only had the client been convinced by the presentation, but they were also openly praising it. Thank you so much. I bowed deeply as well, expressing my heartfelt gratitude. But then, it happened. The unexpected trouble arose shortly afterward. I have a few questions. Is that all right? The client conveyed those words to me. I replied, of course, and mentally prepared the answers I had rehearsed in advance, or so I thought. All right, then, first. Ha! At that moment, it wasn't just me and Sophia who were caught off guard. The words spoken by the client froze the entire atmosphere of the meeting room. Why? Because the question wasn't in English or Japanese, for that matter. It was spoken in an entirely different language. Well. As I struggled to respond, the client tilted their head in confusion, seemingly realizing their question hadn't gotten through, and repeated it. Tom. Looking flustered, Sophia whispered to me from behind. And just then, someone in the back of the meeting room suddenly stood up. Hurry up and translate, Sophia. That person was one of the sales team leaders who had joined the meeting for future planning. It was Tyler, wearing a fearless smile on his face. What? Me? Yes. I heard you're fluent in multiple languages. You're so talented, Sophia, so I figured this would be a breeze for you. Why not have her translate, everyone? No way. When I turned around, Sophia was shaking her head vigorously. I'd never heard her say anything like that. In fact, she had often mentioned lacking confidence even in English. Really? That's odd. I'm sure I heard it directly from Sophia herself. What? Sophia's shock was apparent, but Tyler raised his voice even louder. It was as if he wanted everyone in the room to hear. Did you lie to make yourself look good? Pretending to be better than a high school graduate? No sooner had he said that than another person stood up. Who are you? State your name. It was Mr. Sanders, the CEO, glaring at Tyler with a severe expression. His intensity made everyone, including Tyler, hold their breath. Even the client, whose question had been left hanging, looked perplexed, unsure of what to say. The tension in the air was as tight as a drawn string. At that point, it was no longer a situation where a business negotiation could take place. Everyone must have thought so. And then, it happened. My apologies for the inconvenience. All eyes turned to the person who had spoken. Clearing their throat, the individual smiled at the client and said, I'm ready now. I'll answer your questions myself. What? It was Tyler who let out an astonished shout. Pointing a sharp finger at me, he exclaimed, You were transferred to America, weren't you? How can you speak not just English but French, too? Yes, the words I had just addressed to the client were in French. And judging by their relieved expression, the meaning had clearly gotten through. Regarding your first question, our new product utilizes cutting-edge technology that we've developed in-house. This enables it to adapt to rapidly changing conditions while optimizing performance in real time. Wow! But then, what about the cost issue? There's no need to worry about that either, because as the Q&A continued in French, Tyler's jaw seemed to drop further with each exchange. It was the very picture of being left speechless. Watching that scene out of the corner of my eye, I found myself remembering the 10 years I had spent before returning to the headquarters. Wait, I'm being transferred to America. I still vividly remember the shock I felt when I was suddenly handed the transfer notice. At 26 years old, I had just gotten comfortable with my work, started earning recognition from my peers, and was ready to take off in my career. Tom, you're the only one I can count on for this. Please, I'm begging you. Mr. Sanders. Please, lift your head. The truth is, our sales performance in the US market has plummeted. The local team alone doesn't seem capable of turning things around. I need you to go to the US branch and help rebuild it. But, why me? You may be young, but I've been impressed by your sales skills, adaptability, and quick thinking in tight situations. I hear about your achievements all the time. If anyone can solve the issues there, it's you. I'm counting on you, Tom. Mr. Sanders. The responsibility was enormous, far too heavy for one person to bear. But Mr. Sanders, after exhausting every possible option, entrusted me with his final hope. That sentiment was painfully clear from the expression on his face. Understood. I'll go. Really? You'll do it, Tom? Yes. I wanted to live up to the expectations of Mr. Sanders, who had supported me since my first day at the company. Fueled by a sense of duty, I left for the US a month later. My name's Tom. I'm from the headquarters office in Japan. It's a pleasure to meet you all. At the US branch, I was officially there as a young employee gaining experience. Behind the scenes, however, I was tasked with overhauling the sales strategy entirely. But it wasn't easy, as I quickly learned. Who does this outsider think he is? Just go back to Japan. The local staff watched my every move with suspicion, wondering what this young guy from Japan was up to. The senior executives, in particular, refused to pay any attention to my proposals. In times like these, things are probably the same in Japan and America. So, I began by earning their trust. I arrived at the office first every morning and stayed the latest at night. I shadowed the sales reps, observing how they worked. During breaks, I struck up conversations, listened to their stories about American culture, local customs, and the challenges they faced. You're not so bad after all. I've got a new opinion of you. One day, a veteran staff member who had been particularly cold toward me said this. Encouraged by this shift, I moved to the next step. Let's conduct a thorough market analysis. After making that proposal in the meeting, I personally visited each client, one by one, to directly listen to their needs and concerns. Through these efforts, I uncovered the reason behind the declining sales. The products imported from Japan didn't quite align with local needs. In response, I developed a new sales strategy. Let's offer tailored proposals that address each client's specific concerns and requests, such as product customization or after-sales service. Initially skeptical, the staff began to cooperate after hearing the direct feedback I'd gathered from clients. United as one, the U.S. branch worked tirelessly, and after about a year, we began to see results. We secured a major new client, repaired strained relationships with existing ones, and by the following year, we had achieved a 150% increase in sales compared to the previous year. Fantastic! You've delivered results beyond my expectations, Tom. Mr. Sanders was overjoyed by my report. I felt a wave of relief and joy, thinking I could finally return to Japan. But then, I have a proposal. Could you transfer to our French branch next? What? There seems to be an issue over there as well. Given your incredible work rebuilding the US branch, I know you're the right person for the job. But I don't even speak French. You'll figure it out. This is a direct order from the CEO. What? No way. And so, I was practically forced to head to France next. You did great. Now, for your next assignment. Again. After resolving the French branch's issues in about 2 years, I was sent to Vietnam. Then Italy, then China. Whenever a branch faced a problem, I was dispatched under the guise of a CEO's directive, moving from country to country. Of course, I had no choice but to pick up each language through sheer immersion. The hectic pace of life made time fly, and before I knew it, 10 years had passed. Thank you so much, Tom. Thanks to you, every branch has stabilized. Now, can you finally return to Japan? Are you sure? For real this time. Absolutely. On the other end of the line, I could almost feel Mr. Sanders nodding confidently. But what came next left me speechless. Once you're back, I plan to appoint you as the new head of sales. Additionally, I'm naming you one of the candidates for the next company CEO. What? No way. After returning to Japan, Mr. Sanders explained. By the time I had successfully restructured the US branch, Mr. Sanders had already listed me as a top candidate for the next company CEO. To convince those around him, he planned for me to produce results at various branches around the world. Even so, there were objections to my appointment as department head, with some saying, "Isn't he too young?" But Mr. Sanders pushed past the opposition and promoted me to the position. As for why I hesitated to answer that earlier question, it was because it caught me off guard. And I couldn't recall my French quickly enough in the moment. With a message that I could handle French, Chinese, or any other language as long as I was prepared, I shot a sharp glare at Tyler. His face turned pale, and he quietly slipped out of the meeting room, trying to stay unnoticed. That was incredible. Despite the hiccups, this has been the most satisfying negotiation I've ever experienced. The client, their voice trembling with emotion, opened their arms wide. They then approached me and gave me a powerful, heartfelt hug. So then, of course, let's sign the contract immediately. A thunderous round of applause erupted in the meeting room. Led by Mr. Sanders, everyone turned to me, clapping and smiling. When I glanced back, Sophia stood there as well, her eyes glistening with emotion as she clapped and smiled at me. That, more than anything, filled me with happiness. Thank you. I look forward to working with you. And with that, I successfully closed the deal. Despite the earlier troubles, the meeting concluded smoothly. After the meeting, we escorted the client to the entrance. Then, Sophia and I exchanged glances. "Good work, Tom. And thank you for everything." "No, thank you, Sophia. I couldn't have done it without you." Just then, the automatic doors behind us opened. When we turned around at the same time, standing there was, "Because of you, it's all over now." His bloodshot eyes darted around, and he muttered to himself, his words incomprehensible. His demeanor was clearly off. "Tyler, you should have just taken the embarrassment. If you had, I could have saved you." "Calm down, Tyler," I said softly, trying not to provoke him. I shielded Sophia, who was trembling with fear, as I cautiously increased the distance between us and him. But it only made things worse. "I'm talking to Sophia. Get out of my way, you meddler." He suddenly raised his head, spitting as he shouted in fury. And then, in the next instant, "Stupid high school graduate!" He charged toward Sophia, who was standing behind me, raising his fist. "Ah! Kristen!" I quickly pulled her into my arms, dodging the attack by a hair's breadth. But Tyler wasn't stopping. "Stop showing off. You, both of you." What he picked up was a potted plant from the entrance. He lifted it unsteadily, wobbling on his feet, and raised it high above his head. "Take this." Shouting those words, he swung the pot down toward us, but in that very moment, "Stop it!" A deep, commanding voice echoed through the room, stopping everyone in their tracks. Tyler dropped the pot with a loud thud, and it shattered on the ground. "Mr. Sanders." It's a good thing I decided to check on the situation. "Tyler, you're from the sales department, correct? What do you think you're doing to my daughter and Tom?" "Oh, Mr. Sanders' words seemed to snap Tyler out of his rage. He began trembling, his face pale as he clutched his head. "No, it's not what it looks like. I was just. We'll talk later. For now, escort him to the CEO's office and keep an eye on him." "What?" At those words, security personnel who had accompanied Mr. Sanders stepped forward, grabbing Tyler by the shoulders and arms from behind. "Let go of me. Mr. Sanders, please, I was only trying to." Despite his protests, Tyler was forcefully led away into the building. "Sophia." I turned around, worried about her. She stood there, frozen, clearly shaken by the ordeal. "Sophia, are you all right?" Mr. Sanders approached her gently, prompting her to finally speak. "Who's Kristen?" "Ha? Just now, Tom, you called me Kristen." "Oh." It was only then that I realized what I had done. In the heat of the moment, while protecting Sophia, I had instinctively shouted Kristen. I knew it. I was never really here. Her voice cracked, and her face crumpled with emotion. Before I could respond, Sophia turned her back to me and bolted toward the street outside the office. "Sophia!" "Wait, Tom." Just as I was about to give chase, Mr. Sanders grabbed my shoulder and stopped me. "Let her be, Tom. She needs some time alone. Besides, I have something I need to discuss with you." Something to discuss. We headed to a nearby cafe. After a long silence, Mr. Sanders finally spoke in a quiet voice. "Did you know?" "No, what, exactly?" "About Sophia. Or rather, about Kristen." "What?" Mr. Sanders had unmistakably said Kristen. While I was struck speechless, he revealed an even more startling truth. "Sophia isn't my biological daughter. Back when she was still Kristen, she had real parents. They were my younger brother and his wife." "What does that mean? Does Sophia know about this?" "She doesn't. Or rather, she has no memory of it whatsoever. She has no memories from before she was 8 years old." Looking straight into my eyes, Mr. Sanders told me this. And so, the story of Kristen's past began. Kristen's parents had originally met as patients in the same hospital, both battling the same illness. While enduring their difficult treatments together, they grew close and eventually fell in love. Fortunately, their health improved, and after both were discharged from the hospital, they got married. Before long, they were blessed with a lovely daughter and enjoyed happy days together as a family of 3. But then, tragically, my brother and his wife's illnesses relapsed at the same time. They were hospitalized again, and Kristen came to live with me. Every day, she would visit her parents and perform little magic spells to take away their pain. But Mr. Sanders explained that he met Kristen shortly before her parents passed away. First, it was his younger brother, and then his wife. As if they were leaving for heaven together, they passed away one after another. "Dad, Mom, don't leave me all alone." Kristen, who had never cried once during her parents' hospitalization, wailed uncontrollably at the funeral. And after crying herself to exhaustion, she fell into a deep sleep. When she woke up again, all of her memories until that point were gone. No way. It was too much for her to bear. Her mind shut away the memories to protect her, along with the name her parents gave her, Kristen. As he finished speaking, Mr. Sanders covered his face with both hands, as if he were about to confess a sin from his past. I thought it was for the best at the time. If my only niece could live happily without the burden of her past, there was no need to force her to remember. So I gave her a new name, Sophia, and legally changed it. After formally taking her in, he told her she had been his daughter from the very beginning. He went to great lengths to keep anything that might remind her of her biological parents completely out of her life. And after spending over 20 years together as parent and child, the president was now questioning whether it had truly been the right decision. Even without her memories, she knows something is missing. She struggled with it her entire life, wondering who she really is. "Ah, Tom." Mr. Sanders leaned forward, placing both hands on the table, and bowed his head to me. "Please, go to her. If anyone can help her, it's you." I nodded, and after leaving the cafe, I headed to a nearby park. Mr. Sanders had told me that Sophia always went there when she was troubled. Sure enough, I found her sitting alone on a bench. "Sophia," I called softly. She slowly raised her head. Her eyes were red and swollen, clearly from crying. "Tom." Her voice trembled as she looked at me. "Since I was a child, I've always felt like something was missing. Like there was something important that I'd forgotten." "Yeah." I sat down next to her gently. "I can't remember anything from before I turned 8. What did I forget? And was the person I was before really me?" Tears that had stopped briefly began to fall again, rolling down her cheeks. "The real me doesn't exist. Who am I? Was it truly me that you said you loved, Tom?" "Sophia." Before I realized it, I had wrapped her in a tight embrace. "No, Sophia. You're here. Right now, you're standing here in front of me." "What?" "The person I fell in love with is you." The brilliant, composed Sophia, who sometimes struggles with jokes but takes her work more seriously than anyone else and is kinder than anyone else. "Tom." Her eyes widened in surprise. Even without her memories, the kindness Kristen once had was still alive within her. Even in her own moments of struggle, she always found ways to encourage me with a smile. That kindness is why I fell in love with her. And as I got to know her more, my feelings only deepened. That's why. It's okay if you can't remember. Your past, your present, and your future, all of it, I love you, Sophia. Tom. The moment she called my name, a particularly large tear rolled down her cheek. I've always been so scared. Scared of connecting with others when I didn't even know myself. I ran away for so long. I understand. I thought if I acted cold, people would stay away, and I convinced myself that was fine. Yeah. But. Breaking off her words, she took a deep breath. Then, she looked straight into my eyes. But you were different, Tom. You stayed, faced me, accepted me, and now, you've embraced all of me. At that moment, she smiled, narrowing her eyes. It was the gentlest and most beautiful smile she had ever shown me, and as she smiled, she gently took my hand in hers. Thank you, truly, thank you. Because of you, I think I can finally start liking myself. Sophia. I want to love the version of me that you love. I want to tell everyone that this is who I am. From now on. Yeah. Will you watch over me, Tom? Even if I stumble along the way? Of course. I'll always be by your side, no matter what. As I said those words, I embraced Sophia once more. This time, she hugged me back tightly, holding me close. Sophia. I have one request for you, too. A request. In the end, Tyler faced severe consequences for his actions. His interference during the presentation and his attack on us were treated seriously, and he was dismissed from the company. Under Mr. Sanders' firm questioning, Tyler confessed to everything. Secretly, he used my office computer to send an email to a client under my name. In the email, he told a French client, "Our company has staff with excellent language skills. So feel free to conduct the Q&A session in your native language instead of English." He had deliberately orchestrated a situation where Sophia would struggle with translation, planning to step in as her savior and raise his own standing. He also confessed to being the one who spread malicious rumors about us. I deeply apologize. By the time Tyler left the company, he seemed like a completely different person, quiet and subdued, his spirit broken. Every time he saw Sophia or me, he would bow and apologize repeatedly. I want to believe that he truly regretted his actions. I can only hope that somewhere else, he's starting over with humility and building a better future for himself. The changes in Sophia had become a major topic of discussion within the sales department. Would it be alright if I joined you for lunch? What? Of course. Please join us. Thank you, that makes me happy. Sophia had come to accept herself, including the loss of her memories, and began taking steps toward her future. As part of that journey, she started engaging with others, proactively expressing her thoughts, sharing smiles, and opening herself up to those around her. Sophia, I'm sorry. We were wrong. No, I should be the one apologizing. Her transformation inspired those around her. People began to truly appreciate her efforts and talents and re-evaluated not just her but also me. They even apologized for believing in the rumors about us. Thank you, everyone, and there's something I'd like to say. It's human nature to be swayed by rumors sometimes. But what matters most is what happens afterward. To see and hear for themselves whether the rumors were true. And if they were wrong, to honestly admit it and change their perspective. That's what's important. My words carried across, and everyone listened intently. Let's use this to become an even better team. I'm counting on all of you. When I bowed my head, they responded with a loud yes, followed by thunderous applause. And no secrets from the team, Tom, all right? Yeah, so, when are you going to tell us about you and Sophia? Wait, what? Had they already figured it out? Sophia and I exchanged glances and gave each other a wry smile. Then, both of us, a little embarrassed, began with, actually. As time passed, and the sales department, now united as one team, began achieving even better results than before. Sophia and I visited a cemetery one day. This is my real parents' grave. My father told me about it. Together, we knelt before the gravestone marked with the name Sanders. After offering a prayer, Sophia turned to me with a warm smile. Thank you, Tom. It was because you told me to talk to my father that I was finally able to face him properly. And Even after hearing that I was once Kristen, it didn't feel real. My memories didn't come back. But it's fine that way, Sophia said, narrowing her eyes. That's okay. My father didn't let me go to university because he wanted to protect me. My real father had been a professor, and he worried I might recover my memories if I went down a similar path. Instead, he taught me everything he knew himself. That's how much he cared about me. Even while shielding me from my past, my father still gave me a connection to them. You're still the father I love so much, and you always will be. Saying that, Sophia broke into a radiant, beaming smile. Mom, Dad, I have someone I want to support now. Look, isn't he wonderful? When she introduced me, I looked up at the sky and spoke as well. Nice to meet you. Your daughter has always supported me. I want to be someone who can support her just as much. Together, we'll support each other and find happiness. I was sure our promise was carried on the wind to where her parents were watching over us. Shall we go, Sophia? Next stop is to meet Mr. Sanders. Are you nervous, Tom? Of course. Laughing together, we naturally reached for each other's hands. Together, the two of us began walking toward the future. As if someone were blessing us along the way. A gentle breeze continued to wrap around us, as if blessing our journey. It's only natural for people to be swayed by words or rumors, it's part of being human. But what truly matters is seeking out the truth for yourself, verifying what's real and what's not. To move forward toward the future you aspire to. To protect the smiles of those you hold dear. And always, express your feelings through words. Because those words can strengthen the bond between you and someone special. Who knows? A future you never imagined might be waiting just ahead.